So in this video, we're going to build a YouTube clone using the new AWS Amplify GraphQL client. The API that we're going to be working with is an AWS AppSync API for GraphQL, but you can use any GraphQL server that you would like or any API that you would like. So the first thing to get started is I'm going to go ahead and create a new project using React Native. And I'll call this YouTube clone. And this is going to be a pretty basic YouTube clone. We're going to make it real time though. We want to be able to have videos added, and when someone else adds another video, we want that video to show up in our feed. We're not going to have a lot of crazy functionality. We want to do this as quickly as possible to demonstrate the power of working with queries, mutations, and subscriptions using the clients. So we're not going to get a lot in depth on like authentication and stuff like that. We're not even going to go into it actually. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new API on the AppSync dashboard. I'll call this YouTube clone, and I'll choose custom schema. For the schema, I'll have a type video. This is going to have an ID. It's going to have a name. And it's going to have a URL. We'll also have a query. We'll just call this fetch video. This is going to return a video. So we'll go ahead and create the schema. While that's happening, let's go ahead and change into the new directory for the project we created. And we're going to go ahead and install AWS Amplify and AWS Amplify React Native. And now that that's installed, I'm going to go ahead and run npm start. And because we're running a React Native project, I'll go ahead and run React Native run iOS, because this might take a few minutes to compile. And while that's happening in the background, we can jump back to our AppSync API. I'm going to go ahead and click Create Resources. I'll choose Video, and I'll scroll down to Create. This is going to provision our DynamoDB table, basically our database, our resolvers, everything we'll need to kind of get up and running. And while that's doing that, let's go ahead and open VS Code or your code in any code editor. There we go. And we'll go ahead and start configuring a couple of things. So let me close code because it looks like I'm having an error. Give it a second to revamp and then open it again. Hopefully this works. So we need to go to the API category for AWS Amplify. So you can just go to github.io or, I'm sorry. You're going to need to go to aws.github.io/AWS Amplify, or you can just Google AWS Amplify. Click on the GitHub repo, and then click on maybe API there, or you can just go to the documentation and click on Docs, API, and then we're going to look for the GraphQL endpoints section. So the first thing we need to do is configure our client. So if you're working with a GraphQL server that isn't AppSync, you're going to need to configure it in this way. Basically, all you're going to need to do is pass in the API category to configure, and then if you want to add your headers, you can just do that with this GraphQL headers configuration. But since I'm using AppSync, I'm just going to scroll down a little bit. Down here, we have this, this config. So I'm going to copy that, go to index.js. I'm going to go ahead and just paste this here for now. And I need to go ahead and import Amplify. And I'll paste this config there. I'll go into my AppSync console, and I'll copy this API URL. I'll pass it right here to the GraphQL endpoint. For the auth mode, I have API key, so I'm going to copy the API key and paste it here as well. The region is US East 1, which is correct, and then the authentication type is indeed API key. So for me, this is all the configuration I'm going to need to just set it up on the actual configuring the root configuration for the GraphQL client. Next, I'm going to go to app.js. I'll go ahead and delete a couple of things that we're not going to really need. And just to kind of get the project set up. All right, so let's go back to our AppSync console and let's look at our schema. So one thing we want to do is create a video. We want to actually list an array of videos, and then we want to subscribe to new videos as they come in. So for create video, we have this mutation create video. It takes an input, which is the create video input, which is basically an ID, a name, and a URL. So let's kind of go ahead into our application and create a schema or queries and mutations and stuff to work with our schema. So I'll call this GraphQL.js, and I'll go ahead and create a create video query or create video mutation, and I'll set this equal to mutation create video. And this is going to take in an ID, a name, a URL, and then this is going to call create video with an input. And the input is going to be ID. It's going to be the ID we just created. The name is going to be the name, and the URL is going to be the URL. And then this is going to return an ID, and I guess we'll just return the name and the URL as well. That looks good. Let's also create a query. We'll call this list videos. We'll set this equal to query list videos. I'll say list videos, items, ID, name, and URL. And then since we're here, let's go ahead and do a subscription, might as well. So we have this on create video subscription where we get the ID, the name, and the URL back. So I'll call this const subscribe to new videos, and I'll set this equal to subscription on create video, and I'll say on create video we want the ID, name, and URL. So that's all we need there. Let's go ahead and try this out by listing videos. So I'll go ahead and import list videos. I guess we might as well just go ahead and import everything. Create video and subscribe to new videos from GraphQL. We'll also import API and GraphQL operation from AWS Amplify. And one thing we're going to need that I haven't added yet is UUID. So I'm going to go ahead and say yarn add UUID. We're going to use this to create unique identifiers because we want to be able to generate a unique ID on the client. We can also do this on the server. It's pretty easy, but since we've already configured our server, we don't want to mess around with it too much. You can do it through AppSync, but I'm just going to do it through here. So what we're going to do is in component did mount, I'm going to call a API call just to test this out to make sure it's working. But let's go ahead and add something to our database so when we query for our data, it shows up. So I'm going to go to queries, and I'm going to say mutation, create video. And I'll say create video, input, ID. I'll set this to 0. Name. Let's look up a cool YouTube video. This looks great. Nerf War, Nade Dodge. And then the URL, I'll set this to the URL. And then for the return value, I'll just get the ID. So let's try this out. So the data, it looks like it was created. So in component did mount, I'm going to go ahead and make this an asynchronous function. And I'm going to do a try catch. I'm going to say try await API dot GraphQL, and let's set this as a videos variable, and we'll pass in GraphQL operation, and we'll call the list videos query. And then maybe we can say state is equal to videos, and we'll set that to an empty array, and then we can call this dot set state videos. And then while we're at it, let's log out an error, of course. But while we're at it, let's go ahead and map through the videos as they come back from our database. So I'll say this dot state dot videos dot map. And I'll return a view. And I'll return text with a video.name. And then we'll do video.url. And also, let's go ahead and just log out videos, because I actually think the videos is going to come back in a different data structure. So let's go ahead and actually not set the state yet, because we are going to be digging into that videos variable to get the actual data. So I'm going to go ahead and debug JS remotely. Okay, apparently there is something going on here. So let's check. Oh, I haven't exported these constants. Go ahead and say export. So we have videos, and then the videos has videos.data.listvideos.items. So let's set the videos to, instead of just setting videos to videos, we'll set videos to videos.data.listvideos.items. And it looks like list videos is lowercase. All right, let's see if this works. All right, so we have our data coming back from our API. We're seeing in our view. Let's just give this view a key. And now let's go ahead and try to make this available to add new videos. So we're going to import text input. We're also going to import UUID v4 from UUID/v4. We'll have a URL that we're going to keep up with in our state now. And we're going to have an onChange text function. And this will take, I guess, a value. And the only thing we're going to be working with is the URL. So we can say this.setState URL. So we'll use the text input right here. We'll give this the onChange text value of this.onChange text, but we're going to need to pass in the value. So I guess we'll call this.onChange text passing in the value. We'll pass in a style of styles.input that we haven't created yet. We will in just a second. And we'll set the value to this.state.url so we can control that input. Let's set up a input style of height 50, background color, and maybe a border bottom color as well. border bottom width of 1. And then I guess we'll need a button. And we'll use this button to create a new item or a new video. So we'll say on press, and we'll say this.add video.bond this. And the title will be add video. And I guess we need to go ahead and create this add video method now. So we'll make this an async function as well. We'll do a try catch. The GraphQL operation is going to be a little different. So I'm just copying some of this data or this code from our last function because there is going to be some similarities. So we're going to need to call this create video mutation. So in the GraphQL operation, we're going to say create video, and then we're going to need to pass in a video variable. So the way we're going to create that is we're going to say const video is equal to URL this.state.url, and I guess we're going to need the name as well, which I didn't think of. Let's go ahead and do that. And instead of making this onChange text variable or this onChange text function hard coded, let's also take a key. So we can say key, and then this is going to be value. So onChange text now will we'll be able to pass in something like name and then value. And I guess let's do a placeholder since we're going to have multiple now. So we'll say placeholder is equal to video name. And then we'll just copy that entire text input. And we'll say video URL, and this will be URL. And then the value will be this.state.url, and this will be this.state.name. Whoops. So back to our video, add video function. We have URL, we have name, this.state.name, and then we'll have ID, and this will be set to UUID v4. And then we're gonna, instead of saying const anything, we'll just say await. And then if that's successful, we'll call this.setState. And we want to take the videos that we already have and maybe recreate those into another array. So let's say const videos is equal to this.state.videos, and then we can just pass in the new video. So now we can say this.setState passing in videos, name, URL, so we can reset the input values. I guess I can delete that. So this should do a few things. We create this video object, we pass it to our API, we log out the videos. Well, we don't even have that anymore, do we? So we are creating a new videos array, and we're passing in that new video, and then we're resetting the state with the new videos variable. So this is going to show up like after, I guess, we call this GraphQL operation. So it's not going to be instant, which isn't ideal. You could just move this above this and call it this.setState, I guess, twice. If you wanted to kind of like have it a little more real time and do an optimistic response. But for now, for this demo, we're trying to be fast. Let's go ahead and just kind of keep it as it is. Looks like I have an unexpected token on line 88. And looks like I have a little bit of styling stuff going on. So I'm going to go to align item center and remove that. And then I might add an input margin of 10 to make that look just a little bit better. So let's try to add a new video name. So I'll click another Nerf War video, and I'll say Nerf War 2, video or URL. I'll paste the video URL there. And I'll also open up my console because I want to know if I have some errors. So it looks like the error is variable type does not match. So I think I see the problem. In our schema, we have everything required, whereas in this we only have our first two arguments required. So let's go ahead and make this other argument, the URL, also required. All right, so I'll go ahead and refresh. Go ahead and take this nerf4 video URL, give it a shot. Oh, I need to uncomment the commented out stuff. Yeah, we actually have the URL now. So let's do add video. All right, so the video was added to our UI, but let's check and see if it was added to our database. And it looks like it shows up. Let's go ahead and look at it. So we have the name, and then we have the URL, and we have our ID. So we have our API working as far as like mutating and creating, and then we also have our list, our query. So let's look at how to add subscriptions. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to copy this, and I'm going to create and component did mount a subscription. I'm going to say const subscriptions, and I'll set this equal to API.GraphQL. We have GraphQL operation. I'm going to take my subscription and pass this in. We don't need to pass any arguments. It's just a regular subscription. And then what we're going to have is when the new value comes in, we're going to have this next function that's called. So say, for instance, I'm using this app and someone else is using it. When they create a new video for our app, it's going to come in as a subscription on my end, real time, or basically pretty close to real time from when they create it. And all I'm going to do now is I just want to log out the actual data, because for right now, since we're only working on our client, it doesn't make a lot of sense to kind of do anything with it. But for instance, what you would probably do is you would update the state by calling like this.setState and passing in the new videos array with like this.state.videos, and then adding in that new data, the video from that new data. But for now, we just want to log it out. So let's say new video data, and then we'll just say data. So I think that's all we have to do. Let me just make sure though. So and the component did mount API.GraphQL, GraphQL operation. And I think if we created this GraphQL operation correctly, then we shouldn't really have to do anything. So what we're going to do is, to test this out, we're going to create a new video, and we're going to see if this actually logs out. So I'm going to go back to YouTube. And wow, who knew there were so many nerf4 videos? I'm going to go ahead and copy this URL, refresh. Go ahead and clear this stuff out. So nerf war number 3. Paste that in, add video. So we're hoping to see our subscription fire, but we haven't. So let me take a look and see if I can figure out what's going on. I've already created a component did mount function, so I did not do this correctly. We just need to move this back into component did mount. So not only are we going to call that operation there, let's go ahead and do the subscription. And we'll just put a little comment here that says subscription. So one more time. So now we have 3 nerf4 videos. We'll do one more. So I'll say nerf war 4. Open up the debugger. Go ahead and click add video. there we go. We see our subscription coming through. So this happened in about a second or two later after we created the video. So what happened was the data goes to our API, creates the new video there, triggers a subscription. Our subscribe function fires the next function with the new data. And the data looks like this. We have a provider and a value. The value has a data with a property called onCreateVideo, which is basically this object here that has all the information that is in our new subscription. So that's how you set up mutations, queries, and subscriptions using AppSync with the new AWS Amplify GraphQL client. You don't have to use AppSync with this. Again, I'm just kind of using it because it's easy for me to spin up in this use case. But if you have your own GraphQL API or using another option, then this all should work just like we just looked at it. So thanks for watching. If you have any comments or questions, just leave them for me, and I'll do my best to get back with you and kind of answer that stuff. Thanks.